What am I even gonna call this video? Taking comments now. Any kind of help, would love it. Send me your brainwaves. What should I call this video? I really need the help. It's been a long week. Well, howdy, welcome back. My name is Diana Chu. I was gonna say my name is Diana or Diana Chu. Really, I meant welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is Slowgaze. Currently during Slowgazathon, I did do a little bit of a dip out hiatus moment, but now I'm back and I'm still making as much content as I can before Christmas. So thank you so much for clicking on this video. We're gonna dive into a bunch of magnetic makeup. We're gonna be playing with eyeshadows, little itty bitty squares of beautiful fun, like sparkly fun. It's perfect magpie season. So if that excites you, you've already come to the right place. I want to play with them as if they were mosaics and my big masterpiece. And all of the little chiclets that we'll be playing with today are from NATASHA Denona. So I'm going to consolidate basically 5 palettes and pull from them my favorite eyeshadows, arrange them all in a new magnetic palette that I have. Oh, and if you're new here, this channel is all about slowing down and gazing inwards, which means looking at your stuff, looking at why you have stuff, how you bought it, why you have it, how you use it, everything in between. Just beautiful, beautiful inward gazing intentionality. So if you're into that, if you're into makeup, beauty, lifestyle, minimalist journeys, like please stick around, subscribe. It would really help my little channel grow. 'Tis the season of giving back, giving self-love, and really taking a moment for yourself. I'm your humble host. I try to upload every Wednesdays, and that's my usual posting schedule for 2021. So if you want to leave me a comment down below, I am watching. I do read every single comment. I'm also on Slowgaze on Instagram. I do more of like an art feeling over there. It's like a vibe. It's more of a vibe. Cool? Cool. Let's move you down to the table and commence. This is the magical Salt New York palette. I have this set up for my everyday makeup highlighter, contour, bronzer. Trying out this Kjaer Weis, it's Blossoming, I think. This little sample cheek or lip tint. And then I have Peach from Salt New York, and then 2 NATASHA Denona shadows. So I'm going to completely evacuate all of these current tenets, and then we'll see if we can fit Lila and Gold and all the shadows that I want to keep from both of these. That would be grand, but the ultimate goal is to have all 5 of these just fit into the Salt New York. So we'll see. Let me go through the motions, pop all of these lovely shades out. Was it this rustic shade that came from here? So one of these shades must have been from this gold palette. At first I thought it was rustic from the BIPoC palette, but no, it looks like it was from the gold palette. This has all the original shades as listed here, but they've just been moved around. Whereas from the Lila palette, and these are so hard to open with just one hand here, ta-da! Copper Stone shade from the Camel palette. All the other ones are also bastardized from the BIPoC palette, Safari palette. I had them all. Tropic palette, Sunrise palette, and Lila, of course. So this has already gone through a couple versions. These are shadows that I have identified as really good and that I want to keep from their color story, their performance, etc. So they're already the creme de la creme, in my opinion, for my collection. But from here, I can tell that I just don't use some of these. I don't need to have like 6 different color stories or 5 different color stories. I just need to keep my favorite shadows and treat them more like single shadows. These 2 I think of as twins because I basically put them together and rejigged them just between the 2 of these, the bronze palette and the sunrise palette. This one I conceived of as my like almost tropical palette, really gorgeous shades. Most of it is native to this palette. A few of them are coming from the bronze side. And then this I thought of as my more neutral palette. As a shock to absolutely no one, I am not reaching for this as my everyday palette, unfortunately. It still is too warm leaning, especially these shades. I barely use these at all. And then this is a bit too yellow, this is a bit too peach. You know, there's just some that are too warm leaning. And then this overall vibe, I mean, it's beautiful to look at, but you can see that the shades are quite similar, even though there's more saturation in some. It's just a very warm, gorgeous, sunrisey, egg yolky, floral palette. Enter stage left, we have this Glam palette that I just purchased. I've been back and forth about whether or not I should return it, but in the end I figured it was a nice mix between all these 3. So hopefully I can just consolidate it either into one palette or again, see what I can do. Let me pop these all out. It's gonna take a little while. With these smaller meaty palettes, I found that a mechanical pencil actually works really, really well. If you can't find a paper clip, that also works the best. These are so simple to pop out. I don't find that they jump around too much. The larger palettes, however, I do have to go in with an X-Acto blade or a pen knife, or sometimes my fingers, when they're not so stubby like this, I can get in right between the foam core and the edge of that metal pan, and it works out all right just to lift them up. Wow, seeing these outside of their purple case, I can already tell that there are some that I just don't use or don't expect to use in the future. I feel like so locked into the idea of like it has to have a light shade, then a shimmer shade, then a darker shade, but it's simply not true. When you take them out of their packaging, they do start to kind of speak to you in a different way. Like for instance, this one, I'm like, wow, this is way, way, way too cool toned. It just makes me look totally bruised when I put it on my skin. It's gorgeous as a single shade, but it actually doesn't fit too well with any of these here except this one. And even then the jump is too large, seems kind of out of place. So I'm really excited about this. Same here, like I love this red dragon heart shade, as I call it, but then this one seems a bit muddy. And yes, the camera's picking up on a lot of cool winter light that's coming in from our window. I can already tell that some of these are either gonna wash me out or they just don't really fit into the color stories that I like to use. And this is just one palette, so let me depot the gold one and then I'll get into the midi sizes. All right, forgive my math. I found out that I have 30 individual shadows from just 2 palettes. Magnetic Salt New York palette can fit basically 24 shadows, all chock full. So imagine this entire thing full. So actually it's not relieving me of too much space. If I took out simply 6 shadows, I should be at quota, or I could fill this entire palette. So let me try that first, but then it leaves the idea of keeping these. Let me identify first these 6 that I know I can get rid of immediately. These are kind of grouped into purples. I had the browns here, pinks and reds, and then these teals. These of course were part of that as well. So let me rejig and see how this all starts to play out. Simply too much fun. I don't know if you've ever done this before. I know that having a NATASHA DENONA palette itself makes it so much easier. A lot of the higher end palettes, or palettes in general, they are not easy to depot. I just happen to be in a position where I have so many NATASHA DENONA palettes that it's insane. No one human should have this much. I totally recognize that. So if you're able to buy indie shadows or shadows like MAC shadows, ones that do have individual depotting power that's very easy, I suggest you try this out. This is really, really fun. I'm having a blast. I don't know, maybe it's just about playing with pigments and feeling like I'm making my own little mosaic, but also making the choices that feel kind of low risk feels really good. So I have identified this like pile of goodbyes. You might be horrified to find that those 2 peacock shades here from the gold palette, I simply just don't use that color story ever. I recently did a green color story on my eyes, a blue and a purple and a red kind of. I've linked those videos down below, but teal does not fit into my repertoire, and that's why a lot of people buy the gold palette. So unfortunately those are going, as is these 2 that I feel like are gonna wash me out too much. I've only kept them around because of them being supporting acts for the rest of these. And then this bricky red also feels a little bit too like mid-toned. I would rather keep a highly versatile either black or dark plum to go with the rest of these. This just feels like a transitional medium shade that really is not necessary. So I've identified 5 that I can get rid of. Of these here, this bottom row, they're all too similar. Yes, this is a little green tone, so I'm like inclined to keep that one, but all of these seem too similar. And then here on top, the plum seems really nice. This feels a bit ashy, so I really don't want to keep that, but it's the darkest one that I have. And this also feels a little bit confusing. Brownish, a little bit blue. It feels like it shouldn't be a shimmer, so not sure about that yet. So I feel like of all of these, and of all of these, I would only keep maybe 1 or 2, and then this leaves me with all the ones that I would keep. So this only has 2, 4, 6, 15, meaning I have 15 of 24 available spots. So that tells me I should really try to depot these middies and make it all just one NATASHA DENONA palette in the Salt New York. Let's go ahead and do that. Without getting too confusing, I found that basically, I've tried these sideways too. So basically the larger sizes, only 6 can fit across, even if you tip them on their side. Either way, only 6 across works. Even this way, only 2 rows of large ones and 2 rows of small ones, no matter how you tip them, works. So maybe I should have a goal of having 12 large ones total. And then with these short ones, it seems like 7, only 7 can fit across either way. So you can see I tried to tip it all sideways where they're landscape orientation. That works pretty well. You have a small gap. But then when I put them portrait orientation like this, you get up to 7 and then the 8th barely wants to fit, but it doesn't fit at all. So 7 it is. Up top, 6 it is, below 14 and 12. So that's the ultimate goal here. You can see that I've depotted them and they're looking really radiant. Hello ladies, hello gentlemen. You're looking beautiful today. So I'm gonna try to mix these up a little bit, see what shades I have that are a little bit too close together or ones that just make no sense altogether. And then I will neatly form them into rows before I stick them in line. If you are wondering how I rejigged all of my NATASHA DENONA shadows in the pans, I do have a video on that. So I have linked it down below. Now you can see the little clusters of color stories emerging. And this is really illustrative of how NATASHA DENONA has basically an empire of beautiful things, but a lot of them are dupes or overlaps of each other. You can see how many just champagne-y colors I have in here that are very difficult for me even to differentiate. I did not need to buy so many different ones. And yeah, they're really pretty individually. And I would like to swatch some of these. I'm definitely not going to go into a whole swatch party here. I think that can be kind of paralyzing as well. But it is helpful to differentiate from the formulas she has, because some of them are super flaky. This one here is like a shimmer topper. It basically comes off with no color base. Some of them are like trichrome-y, not quite trichrome like her latest release, but you can see the teal in there, the purple shift, the pink shift. It's really subtle and nuanced. Oh God, look how beautiful that shade is, but very hard to pinpoint. So I do want to spend a little time, not necessarily talking through them, just time with myself to really play with these shadows, see how they're coming along. This is the mattes. They look so pretty together, don't they? I do still have these two up here that were from my palette originally. These two I identified as the most like wearable daytime shadows, day to night, you know, everyday versatile shadows. So these are the ones I'm going to use as my benchmarks for all the others. But the rest of them are allowed to be colorful, like this bricky, sunrisey, orangey, Aperol Spritz color story here. I just love looking at it, but really how often am I using all of these copper shades together? This is the dilemma at hand. Quite a few silvers, a few blacks here, some true browns, adding to this pile that I had identified as like nose. Big task ahead. And the swatch party has commenced. This portion of my wrist right here where I'm looking at the black and almost purple, you see the black on the top and then that like brownish purple in the center. That's what these two actually are. So this is the black on top, which is I think Lash Line from the Glam palette. It's a true kind of gray, almost looks like a brow powder color to me, and it's reading pretty nice on the skin. Seems matte, seems like it could go on smoky. And then this one is a harder formula. You can see I've been pressing down into it, really trying to swirl it up. Totally different pigmentation, and then when I shear it out and layer it, it looks purple brown as compared to this lash line. So these two in the pan look very similar, or they look like they could function in a similar way, but then on the skin I'm like, wow, that's so different. It's getting there. This is the working 2 lines of larger shadows. This is the working 2 lines of these smaller shadows. These are my discard piles for now. I just don't wear pinks. I don't wear things that are leaning pink, leaning coral. Otherwise, I do have some oranges here. They're just such special shades. I really love the vibrancy on my skin, but I don't feel like I need something like this or something like this that's like a copper or a true orange shine on top. I could just use any of these beautiful sparkles or gold shimmers on top. So I'm trying to not keep very specific shades. I'm trying to keep ones that could multi-use across the board. So that's where I'm at. Still deciding between some of these cooler shades. The warmer ones I feel like are easier for me to differentiate because I usually work in those colors, but a strong pattern is emerging, as you can see. The pinks and purples are kind of where Natasha seems to be like really winning. I do like her shimmer formula. Yes, I like her matte formula too, but some of these are just so special, and I can always pick up a good matte from a different palette. These I just want to be my like wow showstopper colors, so I guess that's why I'm gravitating mostly to good color stories, special colors that I don't have anywhere else, and then maybe a few neutrals. We'll see. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, I think it's here. I think it has arrived. It is surprising me because this top row of neutrally taupes are so cool leaning, and then all the rest in here are really warm. And then I have, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because it's not meant to be used as like a system of colors. I do have like very specific color stories in mind. The red one here, the yellow one here, this greenish gold is going to come in handy for a lot of my looks, and then this purple story here. These seem to be my most useful taupes and neutrals, as well as this one, and then some of these golds and topper shades, like these champagne-y ones here, are going to be really useful. I do have the caveat that I pulled this purpley shade aside. This is the one that looks almost like Serpent de Mer Ritual de Fille. It looks black in the pan, but it's basically a blackened plum, and it's so gorgeous. I feel like it doesn't ash out. It really melds well with a lot of different shades. It's just like in painting, where you're not supposed to use the black out of the bottle. You're supposed to mix it yourself from all of the available colors, because otherwise it flattens it out. It looks too artificial or phony, and this is supposed to look a little bit more skin-like, a little more lifelike, like an actual shadow, a living, breathing shadow. So I'm very excited about this. I've put it aside next to my other two everyday shadows. I think this can be my lash line deepener upper, so I think this can live in my everyday arsenal. This would be my Salt New York palette, and then these are all the discarded shades. So what I'm gonna try to do here, put the ones that I really know that I'm going to discard into some of these empty palettes, swatch all of these on my arm just to see if any of them are giving me a little bit of red flag, question marks, raising their hand like, hey, I don't fit in, and then I might do a few swaps if it makes sense. But I'm feeling pretty confident about this. You can tell also that this color story here is very cool tone leaning. It feels like if I had a different skin tone, it might be perfect. I'm already thinking of some of my friends that this would be a perfect palette for, so I'm really going to try to populate it in here and then hand that off to a friend. So I don't know how ruthless I need to be right now. These might just go into purgatory for a little bit. Some of them I'll hand off in like a full palette, but some of them can live in purgatory as kind of understudies to this color story. Maybe in 6 months or so I will revisit and see if I want to keep the discarded pile or the extra understudies as well as this, or if this is actually sufficient. And the big reveal. Just imagine angels singing all at once and they're all in tune. Yes, we have it, folks. This is so wonderful. I feel really not accomplished, but just excited to reimagine what it means for these pigments. I like to think that they will be used as single shadows, especially these three here, this gold, this gold. I think these are prime candidates for toppers. I think I can really see myself using this for another red look. And then this is just a wonderful array of neutrals that I might see switching into my makeup palette, my everyday makeup scene. And then this just might be a fun like inspiration moment. Every time I see this, maybe I'll be inspired to play with more colorful makeup. Same with this row here. So it feels good. It feels like every single time I declutter and I inevitably let go of some Natasha Denona shadows, it does feel a little bit like I'm basically going to declutter all of them, and I'm just deferring that moment. Honor them, use them for what they're worth, but in the end, I just think that Natasha Denona is really beautiful artistry, but having a pan of, what is it? 5x3, so 15 eyeshadows in one. It just is too many eyeshadows. I really, really don't need this much. I'm not a makeup artist. I'm not a makeup pro. In the end, I just do wearable looks for me, and that means neutrals, very specific colors, and then a few color stories that I have enumerated before. The purple story, the blue story. I really think blue is kind of my color, and then that green. Those three are really the main inspirations for my kind of looks, my colorful looks anyway. And then that red, I really only need 2 shadows. But did I need to buy a whole palette for this? No, let alone a makeup palette that was over $100. So this represents a lot of money here. I need to recognize that, and I'm glad that I'm using it in a different way. I'm very inspired to use this, and I guess that's all I wanted to get out of this little exercise. The last thing I wanted to say about this particular assortment, and then I will show you what I did managed to let go of, and these look really beautiful in the packaging. Doesn't this just feel like, oh god, just decadent golden coppery goodness? Ugh, peachy tones. It's so pretty just looking at it, but I can't be fooled. Once they're out of the context of this gorgeous pan, they look different, you know, so don't be fooled by the packaging. Back to these. What are the prevalent palettes that make up this new palette? Little bit of Lila. We have a lot of from the gold palette, actually. Quite a few from here. Quite a few from the Glam palette. Very few from the bronze palette. And some from the Sunrise palette. A little bit from the Sunset, just one. So if I were to recommend makeup palettes from NATASHA DENONA, I would definitely say the gold palette was a winner. The Glam palette was a winner. Sunrise only if you like a certain color story, and the Lila only if you love purples like to death. Everything else I would not recommend to my future self getting the Lila palette again. Sunrise or Sunset palettes. Do it all over again, I would buy the gold and buy the Glam, and that's it. Because now I'm discovering that the Glam actually has, yeah, that perfect mix of cool and warm tones, and it was just pitch perfect. It has a little bit of pink in there, perfect champagnes. I feel really confident with that palette. It's represented here. Close this book for now, and let's just say goodbye and have one last hurrah for these gorgeous, gorgeous shadows. These are just ones that I don't use. These two were candidates to keep, as were some of these, but they just look so similar in the pan. And then the red ones, this was leaning a little bit too pink, this was a bit too orange, and these were very specific to a certain look that I was like, don't need to keep that for good. Closing that. This also, like, looking at it, it feels like it could be the right sort of thing that I want, but actually a lot of them were too peach leaning. I don't like pink shadows on myself. I don't like peach, bloom, blossom, kind of springtime, very fresh, corally looks on myself. I find they lean far too feminine, and every time I do, I feel like I need to put mascara on. Just, it's that kind of look. That aesthetic, it's not my deal. I do love golds, plenty of golds. A beautiful set of stuff that would attract me if I saw it, but in reality, I don't use these shades. Now this is the palette that I think I will be handing off to a friend. Fun options here, and you can make full looks kind of by row or by quadrant here. Some of the gold palette is still intact. You can see that these two really go hand in hand, and then you can always pop on that gold. I'm sure this was from the gold palette. Not sure if that one was, but some of these mattes as well. So I think all of these kind of start to work as quads. And the supporting mattes, I mean, doesn't that look like Chanel's Candid Experience? This feels like a really special shade. This one is that duochrome, kind of grungy red-green, like a dragon. And then these two also feel appropriately cool toned. So overall, I think it would make a good palette. I have someone in mind. It's a good sampling of NATASHA DENONA in this gorgeous package. I really do love this. And by the way the makeup math works is that actually I was able to refill this entire palette and just one outstanding eyeshadow. So I'm actually not going to keep either of these. I thought I was going to keep one for backups, but that's not the case. And same with these. These actually fit perfectly. They fit perfectly. So somehow I've been able to remake these. really fun. I don't think I'm gonna keep them either. I think once they're out of my hands, I'm gonna be sad right now, but I'm gonna be really happy with what I have and I wanna use them up. Welcome back to my kitchen. I'm not even wearing any eyeshadow in this video. I wanted to just say thank you for watching this. I know it's really fun for people who love color, love pigment, and love customization. I used to be a person that would like never dream of depotting something like this. I've always thought that, you know, if you're a makeup artist and you came out with a color story, then that's it. That's the one holy grail. It's a modus operandi. I should not tinker with whatever masterpiece that came out. You know, it just doesn't make sense. And most of the time, these palettes come with their names of the shadows right beneath it. So if I mix it up, then I won't know what to tell you, what it is, etc., etc. In the end, it's not about whether or not I can tell you what shade it is or what palette it came from or what the initial intention was behind all of these. It's how it performs and works for me and my lifestyle, for my space, for my goals. And that is the most important thing. So if I know that my goals here now are about using up my makeup and using up my really favorites, then this is the answer. Like, I'm very glad that I took the plunge and was able to do this. It's different from how we're told we should buy makeup and use makeup. I'm not a makeup artist. I know a lot of makeup artists, they understand that they can deconstruct what is given to them, use it, be creative, you know, but I think as the average consumer, I'm very reluctant to do something like that. I feel like I spent my hard-earned money on it. It's supposed to be convenient and perfectly tailored to me. And of course, marketing says that it is. So why would I have any qualms in believing that? Now this feels just like an alternative method to using makeup. Maybe I'm just really slow to catch on. This feels really, really good. And I'm very excited about this Salt New York palette. I think it's just a dream. It makes for a really wonderful experience. And now I feel like I can keep my stuff in a timeless way, swap it out. Like, I feel free, which is amazing. The last component I wanted to touch on was, yeah, just simply the fact that I did not need to buy this many NATASHA DENONA palettes. The other recommendation I would make beyond purchasing certain ones that work for your personal skin type, your color stories, the ones that you actually know you'll use, is her 5 shadow rows, her like mini size ones, the ones that have no mirror, just like a little bit of a acrylic flap on the top. I think it comes in Camel. That's one of her like very famous ones. It's a neutral brown story, but it goes from very light to very dark shadows. There's enough shimmers in there. And I remember buying that and I really liked that. I think if you're going to enjoy her shadows or test out her formulas, really just try to buy one of those 5-pan ones before you dive into something like this, let alone something like the Metropolis palette or the Star palette, something that has a lot of shadows that are kind of confusing. They do take a little bit of working out and depotting and figuring out. It's not like the most easy stuff. So this is pro makeup stuff I probably would not recommend buying again, ever. I would much prefer buying something cheaper, something from a clean beauty brand, testing out single shadows first before plunging into makeup palettes. They're so attractive. You have the power to depot anything you like, really take control of your collection. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We will catch up again very soon. Adios.
Please handle this side up. You got me upside down.